Aloha and welcome to yet another tutorial on Premiere. This is going to be a two-parter, and in both parts we're going to be talking about cloning. Cloning is something that can be a fun and it can also be a very practical technique. And cloning, just like you probably imagine, involves copying video footage and using it again in some way. It also, just because of the way it works, it also involves extensive use of layering, but we'll get into that. All right, so let's take a look at Premiere here. And I am going to start with a new project. Now this first video I'm going to do this is a fun project. This was shot with the idea of having one person appear multiple times in the same video as repeat characters. So this is included in the edit exercises on your hard drive. And the folder that you're looking for is called Cloning Michael. And I am just going to right click and import that. And this is a pretty short file. We've actually only got 4 pieces of video to work with, and we actually only need 3 of these. But let's just take a quick look at what we've got here. So this first clip, right, we have an empty table. Michael walks in, sets down his Pepsi, he walks away. When he comes back, his Pepsi is going to have disappeared, so he's confused, and then he shrugs and walks away. There's some footage here at the end of this first clip, which we could use, but I think I shot a better version of that, so let's pretend that's not there. The second clip is actually what we're interested in for the having him pop up behind the table, because he's going to pop up and actually steal the Pepsi, which he did not do in the other one. He popped up, but he didn't touch the Pepsi. So the second clip is Michael stealing the Pepsi from Michael. And then we have 2 versions of this third clip. They're both effectively the same. Michael comes in, he reads his newspaper for a bit, and then he walks out. Now in this first clip, he walks out on the same side of the screen that he came in on. That's the easy version. This second clip, this final clip, he does exactly the same action. He walks in, he sits down, he reads his newspaper, but then when he walks out, he crosses the screen. That's going to make our job a little bit harder. So that's the one we're going to use. So we're going to work with these, and we're going to put together a situation where you have 3 Michaels on screen coming and going, and you have a disappearing Pepsi as well. So just to use as a base, I'm going to go ahead and start with this master clip here. This is as close to a master clip as I have. And I'm just going to grab the video and pull it down here under the timeline. Now, this is designed to be video only. There's a little bit of audio. If you listen to it, you'll actually hear me giving directions, but that's not important. All right, let me zoom out just a little bit, and I'm going to make my video tracks just a little bit bigger. Okay, so here we go. We have Michael walks in, he reads his newspaper, he folds his paper up, and he leaves. Okay. Nothing to it. So let's go back to, I don't want to do that one yet. Let's go back to this first clip where Michael is walking in. Okay, so we're going to take this, and what I want to do at this clip, you'll notice it's much longer. I'm going to drop it up here on video 2. All right, so at the moment, the only thing I can see is video 2. All right, because it's obscuring everything underneath it. I'm just going to do a little bit of trimming here. I don't need it to start until he walks in, so I'm going to shorten the beginning of my clip there. And then after he scratches his head and walks out, I'm done with this clip, so I'm going to shorten that up as well. Okay, so this little piece of left-hand Michael, or screen left Michael, is all I need. So let me turn off the bottom layer so we can just watch. Right. So literally he walks in, he sets his Pepsi down, he sits there for a moment, he's reflecting. I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. He walks out. This will be the moment when other Michael, Michael 3, pops up and steals his Pepsi. And then Michael walks back in. Huh, where'd my Pepsi go? Oh well, and he leaves again. All right, so that's all we need of this particular shot. So if I turn on the shot underneath it, right, we can't actually see any difference right now because Michael, left-hand Michael or left side Michael is blocking everything. Now, if you look as I move back and forth right here, there's a problem I'm going to have to deal with. In this first shot, this first layer shot, which will be the newspaper Michael, that chair on the left-hand side is in a different position than it is when this Michael walks in, but we'll fix that later. All right, so let's talk about what are we going to do to make this work. So if I turn off layer 2, I can see on layer 1, Michael's walking in. And I can do a little bit of timing here. So what I want is Michael to walk in and get himself settled. And this will be the moment that I have Michael 2 walk in. All right, so as Michael 1 is futzing with his newspaper, Michael 2 is going to walk in and add his Pepsi. If I turn on layer 2, we could see that. All right. So the problem I'm running into at the moment is I have a layer blocking a layer. I need to get rid of part of it. And there's a couple of ways I could do this. What we have done before over here in Effect Controls is use the mask effect on the opacity. And that would work, but that's kind of clumsy for what I'm about to try. I'm going to have to be drawing these masks, and drawing the masks with precision is not all that easy, at least for me. But there is another effect called crop. So I'm going to go to my effects tab down here, and I know that it's called crop, so I'm just going to search for crop, and there it is under video effects, under transform, crop. So I'm going to drop this crop effect onto layer 2. All right, and you'll notice that now that I've got layer 2 selected, the crop appeared right here in my effect controls. I'm going to minimize the motion and opacity because we won't be using that. I'm going to turn off video layer 1 so you can see better what this does. So with crop, I have an adjustment for left, right, top, and bottom, and it's based on percentage. Each of these, if I drop the little twirler down, has got a scale, which might be a little bit easier to work with. What I want to do on this particular shot is I want to crop off the right-hand side of the video, right? So I'm just going to open up the twirly thing on the right and grab that finder, and you see that it starts to simply cut the video in half, right? And I could run this as far as I want. And I can do the same thing for top and bottom and left even. So crop just allows me a very nice solid way to do getting rid of part of the video. Again, I could do this with the masking, but I find this technique easier. So let me uncrop that. And let me turn on video layer 1. So watch what happens now when I start to crop video layer 2 away. It reveals video layer 1 underneath it. All right, so again, I'm going to turn off layer 2. So this is video layer 1 all by itself. The only thing we're seeing is newspaper Michael. Let me turn that off and turn the next layer on. Video layer 2 is Pepsi Michael, but it has been cropped so that half of it is gone. It's transparent now. And when I turn them both on, I see through that transparent space, that blank space, to the other shot beneath. So now I actually have 2 Michaels. Okay, I'm going to have to deal with this chair, right? So watch the left-hand chair when I play this as we come to the transition from just having 1 Michael to adding the second Michael. Here it goes. You see it move. Okay. That was just a little bit of bad planning on my part, but you know what? It's going to be an easy fix. And I'm going to go ahead and deal with that now so I don't have to worry about it. So what I'm going to do, actually, let's see if I can't just stretch the beginning of this clip. I can stretch the beginning of this clip. And look at that. Okay. My video actually doesn't need to start until here where newspaper Michael walks in. So I'm going to grab my razor blade and just cut those off and delete those. All right, so that's now the beginning of my project. All right, so newspaper Michael walks in. I'm going to fast forward a little bit because they move slowly. Pepsi Michael walks in. Pepsi Michael walks out. Okay, so in here is my window of having to do yet a third layer. Zoom out a little bit so we can see everything better. Okay, so Pepsi Michael gets up and walks away. So during this time, I want Sneaky Michael to make his appearance. And if memory serves, he's the second clip. Yep, there we go. So, and I'm going to go ahead and mark an in and an out for this one just because I only need a little bit. So I'll mark an in here. He's going to pop up. He looks to his left. He looks to his right. He steals the Pepsi and he disappears. I'm going to mark an out point there. And then I'm going to grab the video only and I want to bring it down to my timeline and drop it up here on video layer 3. And I'm going to line it up with where my playhead is. So if I've done my job correctly with the timing, Pepsi Michael should walk off the screen and then Sneaky Michael should appear. Okay, so the timing actually works on that. Beautiful. But that's the only thing that works, right? Sneaky Michael's shot has replaced all of Pepsi Michael and all of Newspaper Michael. That's all right. I'm going to come back over here to my effects tab. I'm going to grab this crop effect, which is still selected, and drop it up here on Sneaky Michael. And then making sure Sneaky Michael's shot is selected, I'm going to come to my effect controls. And just for visualization, I'm going to turn off video layer 2 and video layer 3. And I am going to crop Sneaky Michael. I'm going to crop the left side into where he has room to grab the Pepsi, but not much more. I'm going to crop the right side just as close to his shoulder as I can. And you know what, using these little sliders is a little bit easier to do precision work, I find. And I am even going to crop the top and the bottom on this one. And just because I've worked this footage a number of times before, and I know for a fact that there's a little bit of a lighting change, I'm going to soften the edge of this edge feather. Let me get crazy with it, and you'll see what it does. I want to run it way on up. So you can see it's blurring the edges of that selection, that cropping that I've done. I'm not going to blur it that far, but I'm going to blur it a little bit just to make the transition harder to spot. All right, so when I turn these other layers back on, there's the layer for Pepsi Michael, and there's the layer for Newspaper Michael. All right, so let's watch what happens now. So Pepsi Michael walks out. Sneaky Michael pops up, looks around, grabs the Pepsi, disappears. The Pepsi unfortunately reappears, which we'll fix in a moment. And Pepsi Michael walks back in. All right, we've got a proof of concept here, but watch the newspaper for Newspaper Michael. As soon as Sneaky Michael appears, that crop is getting into the newspaper. So I need to fiddle with this a little bit. I'm actually going to start by turning off my feather so that I can see it more clearly. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so that I can actually see that edge better. All right, and now I'm going to just play with the right side of that crop so that the newspaper doesn't get hit. And I need to be careful because I'm running it awfully close to his shoulder. So right here, right, if I back up just a little bit, I'm losing a little bit of his shoulder. So I really, when I framed this up, I made this pretty difficult. That newspaper is virtually overlapping. So trying to get the crop in between them. And notice the newspaper shadow is being cut off as well. This is why I cropped the bottom. I want to make that bottom crop a little more aggressive. I don't want to get up so far that I'm losing either him or the Pepsi. So just to make sure I can see what I'm doing here, turn these off. All right. So again, at the bottom, I want to make sure that I'm not losing the shadow from the newspaper. You know, and in this particular case, it might have been a better move for me to use the mask tool. I might have been done by now if I had used the masking tool instead of the cropping effect. But let's see what we got here. Oh, see, I'm still getting the newspaper there. All right, so we're going to do it. I want to delete the cropping effect altogether. And I want to zoom this guy back out so I can see everything. All right, I want to start here in the middle. And I'm going to open my opacity and drop a rectangular mask on there. All right, I want to zoom back in. Maybe not that much. Hey. All right, now this is a case of really going to get this guy shaped up the way I want him. And I don't know if I've specifically mentioned before the fact that you can add points to these masks just by clicking on the dotted line there. All right, let's see if this does the job. All right, that does the job pretty well. We can't, we don't lose the newspaper. We don't lose his shoulder. We don't lose the Pepsi. Now, if you look really closely, you can see a difference in the background here. And that was my fault. When I shot this, the time of day it was, there was a little bit of light coming through a window, and as the sun rose or set, whatever time of day it was, the lighting in the room changed just a little bit, but it was enough that you can see the difference there. So there's a couple of things I can try here, but for the moment, I'm just going to leave this as is. I think that, well, we'll come back to that anyway. All right, so here we go. Oh, wait, I need to turn on video layer 2. Okay, so here we go. So we see Pepsi Michael walk out. Sneaky Michael appears. Looks to the left, looks to the right, grabs a Pepsi and disappears. Perfect. Okay. Now the Pepsi has reappeared since Sneaky Michael disappeared, so we'll fix that next. Now this is just going to be simplicity itself. All I need to do, if we look at video layer 2 here, all I need to do is crop video layer 2, let me turn off video 1 as well, a little bit further so that that Pepsi is gone. But I need to do it while video layer 2 is hidden. I could do this with keyframes, but there's no reason to. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take my razor blade, and at this moment here, somewhere while video layer 2 is being obscured by video layer 3, I'm just going to grab my razor blade and make a cut. And then I'm going to select the second half of this clip. And I'm going to change my crop over here in the effect controls, and crop the right side even more, so that that Pepsi is obscured. So if I just play that, if we're only looking at video layer 2, what you'll see is it goes from being cropped to being cropped even more. That's just a jump cut. But it's a jump cut that's going to be hidden by what's going on around it. Okay, so if we put all 3 layers together, and then Michael walks in, his Pepsi has disappeared. What the heck is up with that? He's going to turn around and walk out of the frame. When he walks out of the frame, that shot's going to end. So there is no longer any video 2 blocking video 1 as Michael crosses. Okay, we're really getting there. Now, just because we want it to be perfect. If you're looking where Sneaky Michael pops up, you can see that change in lighting, but you can see it because it's abrupt. Pink, right? That's a jump cut, and it calls attention to itself, and it'll be a jump cut when it disappears. So I could spend a lot of time in color correction trying to make that match perfectly, and maybe I could get it to the point where you don't see it. It would be time intensive to get just that slight bit of brightness changed without changing anything else. I know this because I've tried. But I don't think, actually, if you're just looking at this image, I don't think that you would ever notice there's an ever so slightly lighter patch there. What's calling the attention to it is the fact it's a jump cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dissolve at the beginning and the end of Sneaky Michael's clip so that change is subtle. It happens more slowly. Now I could do this over here by going to my effects tab, opening up video transitions, dissolve, and grabbing the cross dissolve and moving it over there. But again, cross dissolve is my default transition, and is probably your default transition since I've never showed you how to change it. Command D will apply the default transition to a selected edge. So I just click right on the edge of this and hit Command D, and it puts a dissolve. And I'll put right at the second edge and hit Command D, and it puts a dissolve. All right, and let's play that and see what we've done. That is the opposite of what was supposed to happen. Okay, the fade out is working, but not the fade in. You know what? Something is ringing in my head. This is a known bug in this version of Premiere. If you're trying to do transitions on something that you've used masks, they don't always work as expected. So just for giggles, I'm going to try a different transition. I'm going to drop a film dissolve on there and see if that works. What I did should have worked. That's the fact that it didn't, the fact that you saw that flash to black is a bug. Yeah, see, it's still acting wonky. That should not be happening, that little black area appearing. All right, well, I can do this by hand, actually. Let me zoom in a little bit. Since the fade out is working, I'll leave that alone. Do you remember how that little white line on the audio layer, we could keyframe that using the pen tool in order to change volume? Well, this white line on the video layer by default is transparency. So I can actually do the same thing by grabbing my pen tool. And actually, before I grab my pen tool, I'm going to stretch this out, just make it, a second or so longer. I can grab my pen tool and use it to mark 2 keyframes and run the opacity up. So I've done exactly the same thing that a dissolve would do. I've started with 0 opacity and have it fading in to full opacity. Haha! Take that, Premiere. I ain't stopped by no bug. All right. So just for giggles, let's watch this magnificent thing in its entirety. So in comes Michael with his newspaper. He's going to settle down for a good read. And in comes Michael with his Pepsi. He's going to settle down for a good sit and think with a tasty cold caffeinated beverage. Oh, but we've forgotten something. That's all right. We'll just leave our tasty cold beverage here and sneak off to do whatever was forgot. But here's Sneaky Michael up to no good, and he is going to snag that tasty beverage and disappear. Michael's still reading his newspaper. I could actually work the timing on that a little bit, but I'm not going to bother. I had a Pepsi. I know I had a Pepsi. Oh well, clearly I don't need to be here anymore. And Michael has finished with his newspaper, out he goes. There you have it. So the trick with shooting something like this, if you want to play around with cloning, is to have the camera as non-changing as possible, right? So I've got this thing locked down on a tripod. I have the focus set to manual. I have the exposure set to manual, which ended up working against me, but usually is the right thing to do. And I had the white balance set to manual so that nothing would change. The brightness of the image wouldn't change. The color of the image wouldn't change. The point at which it was focused wouldn't change. And above all else, the framing wouldn't change as I shot this. Anything that moves will give the illusion away. Now, my next video, which we'll do real quickly, well, it should be I was going to promise it would be faster than this one, but I can't make that promise. It'll probably be about the same. Anyway, doing this to have multiple characters on screen is one technique, but cloning can be used to fix certain kinds of problems, and that's what I'm going to show you in the next video.